Are we confirmed that we're live?
Yes, we are.
Good morning. I hereby call the special Palm Springs City Council meeting to order. Today is July 1st. It is 8:38 p.m. and we are interviewing candidates for Planning Commission and the Historic Site Preservation Board.
Madam Mayor, the record will reflect that all council members are present, and we do have a public comment today, and I'll reach her right now.
Thank you.
Hello?
Hello, Denise Jarrett.
Yes, this is Denise Jarrett.
You're live with the Palm Springs City Council, and you have 2 minutes to provide your comments.
Good morning. My name is Denise Jarrett. I am a retired expert hairstylist, currently volunteering at the Well in the Desert, helping as a navigational guide and crisis response mental health first aid coordinator. I support the homeless by maintaining personal care, hairstyling, hygiene. With this help, it helps the homeless with diversion to homelessness and housing to obtain gainful employment. My comment to the appointees today is, will you support the diversity and inclusion in Palm Springs by using code 14.10.110 commission to recommendation without a petition and a hearing for the renaming of 2 streets for Sammy Davis Jr. and Ella Fitzgerald to join their friends Frank Sinatra and Marilyn Monroe in Palm Springs. Thank you, and I look forward to your answers.
Thank you, and we'll disconnect.
Thank you very much for the public comment. Pursuant to the Brown Act, we are not able to respond to your public comment at this meeting. We can only talk about the items on our published agenda, but we very much value and appreciate you calling in and providing public comment, and you can contact council members separately and talk about any issues. So thank you.
Thank you.
That's the end of public comment, right, Anthony?
Yes, it is. And I just wanted to note for the public, we did reorganize the meeting schedule slightly. Lori will be coming in at 9:40, and then Catherine Mahone will be coming in at 10:30, and Tom Manzi will be coming in at 10:40. And that's the amended schedule. And if you're ready, I can admit Mike Rowley into the room.
Thank you. We're ready. Welcome. Good morning. Hi, is it Mike? You go by Mike or Mr. Raleigh?
I go by Mike now. I've always gone by Michael, but it's time to update my name.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We very much appreciate your commitment to serving the city and your interest in this position. So just as information, we have 10-minute interviews, so short and sweet, just asking you a few questions. We'll rotate per council member who will ask you a question. And we are interviewing 7 candidates today for one position to the Planning Commission. So thank you for being here. We appreciate you being here with us bright and early, and I will kick it over to Mayor Pro Tem Middleton to ask the first question.
Mike, welcome.
Thank you.
Could you tell us why you are specifically interested in an appointment to the Planning Commission?
Well, I think that I have what it takes. I think mechanical problems, dealing with population growth, aspects of building, and then also areas of planning that I'm kind of aware of and have updated myself here in Palm Springs with a strong background in banking, real estate, title, and escrow legal aspects, but also I had a stint in Sacramento County with the Antelope General Plan, which is northeast Sacramento, where I was asked to serve on the Planning Commission there. And so we did an entire general plan, which brought in gas stations, churches, aspects of parks and that type of thing, without an electrical type of grid situation, which we're entering now. So I feel as though that I have a base, a solid foundation in regards to that, but also I'm looking forward in regards to environmental and energy methods that will require us to build back better, I guess. So.
Thank you.
Hi, Mike. I just fixed my screen name from Jeffrey to Jeff, so thank you for that reminder. So what do you see as the role of a commissioner and a commission as it relates to the city council, as well as in working with staff directly, which will happen sometimes, especially in planning?
I think the most important thing I think is relationships. I think ability to listen. I think I have a knowledge of a number of you all there on the board. I've served with a couple of you in a number of capacities at the Art Museum. JR, I did, and also Jeff. I think we knew each other in San Francisco at some point back in the day. And so I think I have an understanding of of all of you, basically from a heart standpoint, and also a love for Palm Springs and the Coachella Valley. But also I understand that we have a whole new world opening up before us, right? We have times are changing. I think the base of the population here in Palm Springs is becoming artful and more interested. And so I'd like to bring that to the fore here if I'm selected to be on the Planning Commission.
Great. Thank you, Mike.
Huh?
Michael, thank you for applying. Can you tell me what you think the most important issue before the commission is?
I believe that population growth. I think also, building plans are important as long as we deal with mechanical problems that require kind of longevity, I think. I think here in Palm Springs, like a lot of resort towns that have a residential component with a lot of development, I think it's important to have artful, creative ideas and visual aspects, but also I think that we need to look at energy. I think we need to look at, some even the scientific methods of energy and how we can incorporate them physically with engineers and with, people who make the decisions here. So, So.
I think that's me. Hi, Mike. Can you tell us a little bit about which projects in the past 10 years you think were the best and which ones you think were a bit not so great?
Here in Palm Springs or
yeah.
where
Here in Palm Springs.
Well, let's see. Without getting, I was with the Art Museum and I worked with Dr. Cornell, the director of art, as a volunteer. So I was on the Museum Service Council. And so, there's a give and a take between the artist aspects of here in Palm Springs. And then of course, there's the money down valley. And then, a lot of things that are happening with our beautiful, the attitude of yesteryear. Palm Springs will always be a driving place. I think moving forward, I think what's going on with, working with some of the younger people moving here, working with people my son's age. So I think with the buildings downtown, like I work with Benton and DeVille with a new building that went in right by Blaze Pizza. So I'm involved with that building as a realtor. So I really kind of like what's going on. I do know aspects of like the problem with Port Lawrence over the years, right across the street from Coffee. That was an issue. I think some of the political issues that we dealt with during the prior administration here in Palm Springs, family development I was involved with as a lender with Wells Fargo Bank. I think we're on a good track. And then, something kind of happened here in Palm Springs, and I think now, I think with our new mayor, I think with Geoff, I think with JR and everyone, I think there's some good energy. And so I kind of see both sides. I see where we've been, but I'm really excited to see where we're going to go under the leadership of the city council in a general sense.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from council members? And Mike, do you have any questions for us?
I don't. I'm looking forward to hearing a positive answer, though. Thank you so much for including me.
Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Great to see you here tonight, this morning.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
All right, Madam Mayor, Charles Kohler is in the waiting room, and I'll bring him in now.
Thank you. Hi, Charles. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. Welcome. We're so grateful for you to spend your morning with us and your commitment and interest in serving the city. We very much appreciate it. So you have the full city council here. We are doing 7 interviews of candidates for 1 appointment to the Planning Commission. We are doing 10-minute interviews, so it's short and sweet, and each council member has a question for you. So we will start with Mayor Pro Tem Middleton.
Charles, thank you for coming in. My
pleasure.
question is, can you tell us why you're specifically interested in an appointment to the Planning Commission?
Well, I started my professional career out as a planner with a city in Florida, Titusville, Florida, and have always been interested in it. Then went into the law and worked at it from the private side. And now that that career is coming to an end, I want to once again give back to the community in an area that I've always been interested in, that I've always worked in. And the time is right now for me to be able to devote the time necessary to do the job well.
Thank you.
There we go. Hi, Charles. What do you see as the sort of division of responsibilities between the city council and the commission?
Well, my belief is that the city council creates the policies and the regulations and the framework in which land use decisions and general city planning are made. It's up to the Planning Commission to carry out those directives, as well as perhaps when called upon to give input to the council as to what the Planning Commission's thought might be on any area of subject that the city council is interested in, and utilizing our expertise to give hopefully wise advice to the council should they ask for it.
Great, thank you.
Charles, what do you think the most important issue before the Planning Commission is currently?
I think probably the one that's the most difficult to achieve is the fact that the city of Palm Springs, being an old established city, really has not a lot of opportunity for, let's say, brand new planning. And so you have to take what you have and incorporate and integrate into that what you wish to be in the future based upon a relatively limited amount of land in which to do that. So making sure that new projects, that new ideas, that new concepts not only look towards the future, but understand and incorporate the past and the very character of Palm Springs. That's always difficult to do in an older, more established city.
Thanks, Charles. My question is, of the projects that we've seen in the last 10 years, which ones do you think were the best and which ones do you think were the worst?
Well, I think that the city has done a good job in paying attention to and developing downtown. I think the city has done a very good job in that area. As you may know from my resume that I put in, I was redevelopment director for the city, and downtown revitalization and keeping downtown active and vibrant is a difficult job. And I think that the city's done a very, very good job on that. I'm not sure I've seen any projects that I necessarily disagree with or that I find offensive or not correct. I really can't think of anything that I would have ever gone to a meeting and objected to that I've seen built in the last 10 years.
Well, that works. Thank you.
Thank you for your answers. Are there any other questions from council members? I failed to say we have Kathy Wermuth, the Planning Commission Chair, on the call with us as well. Are there any final questions for Charles? If not, Charles, you have a few minutes left if you'd like to add anything to your interview.
I don't necessarily need to add anything. I just am willing to lend whatever experience that I have that you deem worthy to the city. I've lived here for 30 years. I love this place. Wouldn't live anywhere else. And I really would like the opportunity to give back, to serve this community, to keep it as great a place as it has been for the last 30 years.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate your comments and your answers. So thank you for being here this morning, and we appreciate your time.
Well, thank you, Council, and I appreciate the opportunity to throw my hat in the ring, so to speak, and hopefully I'll be working with you in the future.
Thank you, Charles. Have a great day.
All right, you too.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor and City Council, your next interview is Joe Rodriguez, but he's not in the room just yet. We're calling him right now to see if he can join us a couple minutes early.
Great, thank you. Well, there are 3 applicants from District 4 in the mix, so my district wins today.
Madam Mayor, we weren't able to reach him. We went straight to voicemail, so I would suggest taking a 5-minute recess.
Thank you. We will recess for 5 minutes until 9 a.m. And we will come back with the next interview. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll admit Joe Rodriguez now.
Hi, Joe. Welcome. Good morning.
Hi, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. You have the entire Palm Springs City Council here, as well as Kathy Wehrmuck, who's the Planning Commission Chair. So thank you for your interest in serving the city and your commitment to our community. We very much appreciate it. We have 10-minute interviews this morning, so it's short and sweet. Each council member has a question for you. And then if there's extra time at the end in that 10-minute slot, we will hand it over to you to add anything that you might want us to know. We are, as I said, interviewing 7 candidates, and there's making 1 appointment to Planning Commission. So with that, we will start with Mayor Pro Tem Middleton.
Good morning, Joe, and thank you.
Morning, Councilwoman.
Thank you. Could you describe for us why you are specifically interested in the Planning Commission?
Well, I was raised in New York and instilled with the values of giving back to the community at an early age. This was volunteering Sundays, clearing debris from abandoned lots and underprivileged neighborhoods to create sustainable community gardens. And as an adult, the experience shaped my core values and ethos. I hope to continue and contribute to the needs of the community by this appointment to the board. Early in my career, I received recognition and a commendation of service awarded by San Mateo County Board of Supervisors in the Bay Area for successfully contributing to the recommendations offered in a collaborative environment to enhance the needs of county clients and improve services specific to the delivery of home health care and other target city agencies, all while challenged by budget deficits. Members of the appointed committee consisted of elected city officials within the county, labor unions, which I once represented, community advocates, residents, and private sector providers. And in a collaborative environment, by consensus, we successfully enhanced efficiencies and improved the delivery of services, reaching budget targets through attrition, while addressing the agency budget mandates by the county. And as an entrepreneur, I've developed through my own experience challenges faced as a startup and small business owner. And this experience includes presenting various planning commissions of large cities, which includes Cicero and Chicago, which allowed me the opportunity to advocate on behalf of a transformative approach to enhance the user experience, coalesce with the needs of the community, and to ensure the delivery of services supported to an effective process of good governance. As important to policy implementation, building codes, ensuring variances are met, and aesthetic preservation of city objectives. Equally important is a cognitive balance to meet the needs of local business owners and developers while meeting mandates established by the people and legislators and applying all 3 cognitive applications successfully. So this, in my opinion, is an effective pathway to creating transformative experience with responsible growth to support effective governance.
Oh, thank you.
Hi, Joe. My question is, what do you see as the relationship between the commission's role versus the city council's role? And sort of a second part is the relationship with the commission as they work with staff.
Interesting question. Well, first off, let me just express to everyone on this panel and thank you for your service and your commitment to service. So I'm humbled by this opportunity presented to be considered as a member of the Planning Commission. My primary objective to serve is in the best interest of the community, and I hope to contribute and aim to enhance the transformative experience to all the people who live, work, visit, service, and do business within the city of Palm Springs. And I'm of the thought process that good governance is an essential prescription to secure fair process, but equally important is adhering to policy mandates established by elected officials and to comply within the rule of law. So a functioning government, in my opinion, provides citizens a commitment of fair balance and accessibility to shaping fair policy standards in the best interest of all the citizens it serves. The process of providing fair governance is essential to ensure responsible growth while meeting the needs of the citizens successfully who share common interests in a collaborative environment with a primary focus of improving the standards of living for all members of our community, in my opinion.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. What do you think the most important issue before the Planning Commission is at this point in time?
Interesting question. The most important most important is policy implementation and building codes, and ensuring variances are met. Is the aesthetic preservation of the city and that those objectives are adhered to. Equally important is the cognitive balance to meet the needs of local business owners and developers while meeting mandates established by the people and legislators and apply all cognitive applications successfully. This, in my opinion, is an essential pathway of creating a transformative experience and responsible growth to support effective governance. Excuse me for the phone.
That's all right. Thanks, Joe. What do you think have been some of the most successful projects in Palm Springs in recent years, and what are ones that you don't like?
Well, as a strategic thinker and problem solver, my objective and commitment to each of you, along with the deliverables you can expect from me, are to focus on the success of the board and seamless functionality of city management and meet the mandates established by elected officials while addressing the needs of the community. This would include identifying efficiencies and risk mitigation quickly while cultivating transformative solutions and creative insight in a collaborative environment to ensure efficiencies are realized and infrastructure resources are met. Equally important to adhering to policy mandates established by the rule of law, providing objective balance that is required to develop enhanced ideations and agility to meet new demands are all very important. And offering insightful, transformative new pathways in a collaborative environment to a mutual success between the city, the people, and the private sector. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. So we have 2 minutes left in the interview. If any council members or Kathy, if you have any questions. Seeing none, Joe, you have 2 minutes to add anything you would like us to know about your application.
Well, I welcome the opportunity to be considered as part of the planning board, and my commitment again in this capacity to the city council, if chosen as your preferred candidate, is to ensure the process of good governance and that it is an essential prescription to secure a fair process, and I'm committed to that function.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time this morning and your commitment to the city of Palm Springs. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And thank you for your service.
Thank you. You too.
Madam Mayor and City Council, Scott Miller is in the waiting room, and I'll admit him now.
Thank you. Hi, Scott. Welcome back. We're connecting to audio, so we'll wait for that. Hi, good morning, Scott. Welcome back.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Thank you for being here today. Thank you for your commitment to our community and your interest in continuing to serve the city of Palm Springs. We appreciate you coming back to interview with us again. So we have the full Palm Springs City Council, and then we also have Kathy Wermuth, the chair of the Planning Commission. We are interviewing 7 candidates today for 1 appointment to the Planning Commission, with a term ending in June 2022. We have 10-minute interview slots. So we will have 10 minutes. Each council member has a question for you. And then if there's remaining time, which there might be, we'll open it up to you to offer anything else you'd like to add to your application. So first, we will start with Mayor Pro Tem Middleton.
Good morning, Scott. Good to see you.
Good morning.
Could you tell us why you are specifically interested in the Planning Commission?
Well, I think my past experience working for more than 30 years in the planning and zoning field for various cities, including the city of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and most recently the city of Oakland, California, and working with planning boards with those cities from the staff perspective will serve me well as a planning commissioner in Palm Springs. I think my background really suits the Planning Commission well. I'm very familiar with all of the types of applications that come in front of the Planning Commission. And I think I've learned a lot in my 30 plus years of public sector planning in terms of offering insight into code amendments and project reviews in trying to make sure that development in Palm Springs proceeds not only in accordance with general plan and zoning, but really makes sense and is a best fit for how the city wants to grow and develop in the future.
Thank you.
Hi, Scott. Nice to see you.
Hi.
So my question is, how do you see and understand the role of the Planning Commission compared to the City Council? And sort of a second part is the relationship of commissioners with staff when you're working together.
So the Planning Commission often is tasked with making recommendations to the City Council for code amendments, general plan amendments on certain development applications. The Planning Commission is simply in an advisory role to the City Council, and then the City Council makes their decision based on the merits of the project. The Planning Commission is not the City Council and should not be making policy decisions. It should be carrying out policy that's been set by the council, either through policy directives or through codes that the City Council acts on. And so there's clearly a differentiation, but hopefully the Planning Commission and the Planning Commissioners will draw on policy of the City Council in making their recommendations or in making their decisions on those applications where they are the final authority. Regarding the Planning Commission and the Planning Commissioner's role in relation to staff, we are not staff, clearly, but we are in a role that is to carry out the directives of codes and policy of the council. Staff is there to guide the Planning Commission and offer assistance if there's questions procedurally or other that the Planning Commission or Planning Commissioners have. Then staff is there to be of assistance in providing direction. The planning staff, in my review of the Planning Commission meetings and in the role I've had on the Historic Preservation Board, staff is very adept and very qualified to provide the professional expertise and professional assistance to the Planning Commission and to its other boards that it oversees. So I have complete confidence in the planning staff in the views that I've seen them. So that's my perception of the role of Planning Commission in regard to staff.
Great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Scott. Scott, what do you think the current most important issue before the Planning Commission is?
Well, I think dealing with an onslaught of development that I see probably starting to boil up, which is a good thing in general, and how to deal with those projects appropriately to provide the appropriate amount of guidance early on in the process in terms of shaping the look of the project, maybe even some big picture issues such as access to certain streets. For instance, the Planning Commission is dealing with a project, I think, in the 1,000 block of North Palm Canyon. And it fronts both Indian Canyon and Palm Canyon. And the project came in front of the Planning Commission for a design session or a study session a month or so ago, maybe 2 months ago now. And I thought it was important to make a statement about access to Palm Canyon. Palm Canyon is where we want to have, a complete building wall, and the project is proposed with about a third of the frontage facing Palm Canyon as parking lot and driveway. And I voiced my opinion that I think that's inappropriate since the project also has access from Indian Canyon. So I think those are the kind of important comments that can be made and that the Planning Commission can make early on the design review process to better shape a project. Other things, I know there's a land use plan, comprehensive plan updates that are in front of the Planning Commission now that are important going forward. I know the Planning Commission is seeing a lot of cannabis-related applications, of course, and I know that there's been some recent amendments to the cannabis ordinance. One comment I would make regarding cannabis, just in my observation in traveling on Palm Canyon, there are a lot of dispensaries going in on Palm Canyon, and I do have a concern long-term that at some point we need to limit the number that get in the door for dispensaries on Palm Canyon, because at some point, whether you like cannabis or not, I think the impact of a significant number of cannabis dispensaries on our major retail corridor could have some negative ramifications to the customer base and to our visitors on Palm Canyon that may not be quite as accepting of those types of facilities. So those are my comments on the Planning Commission's issues going forward.
Thanks, Scott. Can you tell us what projects you think were done well in the past 10 years and which projects you don't care for that were done in the city of Palm Springs?
Well, let me talk briefly. Let's say the block there where Starbucks is, I think that was done well. The new Starbucks downtown at the corner of Tockwitz, that was done well. Further north, where the project gets a little bit larger, in the block near Museum Way, that building, and I mentioned this in a previous interview, I believe, that building I think should have stepped back at the above the second story. It's a 3-story building wall, relatively close to the sidewalk line. I think that building would be better perceived and less imposing if the 3rd story had stepped back at least 10, if not 15 feet, to provide a little bit of an opening up of the corridor there. There are, let me talk about projects that are under construction now. The Cody Place there on South Palm Canyon. I think the jury's out yet, but I'm a little concerned with a lack of diversity in color and building style and elements on the building. It seems quite repetitive, which of course I understand is somewhat necessary from a construction cost standpoint, but I think there could have been more variations provided in not only building envelope as well as color. Let me think of other projects that I'm aware of.
Mr. Miller,
Yeah.
we need to wrap up.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you so much. I think that's our 10-minute time. So
Okay.
we very much appreciate your time today and your perseverance with us and your commitment to the city. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much again for the opportunity to interview. I'm hoping at one point I'm going to have a Susan Lucci moment.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You. You too.
Madam Mayor, Greg Rodriguez is in the waiting room, and I'll admit him now.
Hi, Greg. Good morning and welcome. Good morning, Greg. Welcome.
Morning. Long time no see.
Yes. So thank you for being here. Thank you for everything that you do for the city and for your interest in serving on the Planning Commission. So just so you know, we have 10-minute interviews this morning. We are interviewing 7 candidates for 1 appointment to the Planning Commission for a term ending in June 2022. So short and sweet, 10-minute interviews. Each council member has a question for you. And then if there are remaining minutes, we will leave that to you at the end to add anything to your application. And as you know, we have the full city council and Kathy Wermuck, who is our Planning Commission chair. So with that, we will start with Mayor Pro Tem Middleton.
Morning, Greg. Good to see you as always.
You too.
So tell us why you're specifically interested in the Planning Commission.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I've lived in the city full time now, going on 17 years. Been coming here since I was 5 years old, though. I've seen amazing changes and really see more changes coming. I want to serve primarily really bringing an affordable housing and development lens to the Planning Commission. My work in the last 4 years with the supervisor has been heavily focused on affordable housing, working also in conjunction with the counties and Lift to Rise's Connect Capital campaign. So fully aware of rules and regulations and RENA numbers and housing elements, and more importantly, how we as a Planning Commission and the council can get in front of the NIMBYism and really help developers with streamlining processes, but still meet environmental standards. Additionally, working to make sure that we're preserving our affordable housing units. And then additionally, Mayor Pro Tem is just, really balancing the need for preservation, but the need for smart development and smart growth as we go forward.
Thank you.
There it goes. Hey, Greg. So can you just share a little, it's sort of a little two-parter, what you see as the commission's role as compared to the council's on matters that will come through the commission, as well as how the commission members work with staff?
Yeah, great question. And kind of what I do in a staff position for the supervisor or with the congressman is I see the Planning Commission's role in all commissions is really to be the kind of a staff element of the council and really doing the in-depth research, really making sure that projects that are brought to the council for approval, again, are fully vetted, are meeting the not only the needs of the city, but the wants of the council and the residents, and really making sure that a concrete plan is laid out for the council to approve. That doesn't mean they can't ask questions and make changes, as you all know. But again, I really think it acts as a buffer. I think as far as interaction with the staff, it's critical, as far as the planning department, as far as, even working with other committees like the Architectural Review Committee and other staff members within the city is key, again, to developing that real comprehensive packet and proposal that would go to the council.
Thank you, Greg. Good seeing you. Hey, can you tell us, what do you think the most important issue facing the Planning Commission currently is?
I think meeting RENA and housing element numbers and doing that again in the balanced way. I think also we need to make sure that when we're citing any affordable housing developments or other housing developments, that we're looking at it in a citywide approach, that we're not concentrated in one part of the city or not. I also think too is, addressing some of the developers' concerns around processes within city, within the planning department. Again, this goes back to Councilman McCore's question about interacting with other city staff. And again, I also too would argue is, and not necessarily argue, but believe that the commission really can play a greater role, and not that they don't already, but really in the education of what development means for the city, and especially when it comes to when we're dealing with NIMBYism.
Thanks, Greg. My question is, what do you think have been the most successful projects in Palm Springs in the last 10 years, and which projects do you think are not so great?
Well, I would cite the Westman development downtown, of course, under the leadership now of Michael Braun. That block was blighted for years. And I know that took a lot of work on behalf of John and Michael, and has become a jewel as far as I'm concerned within the city. I'm very proud of the 3 projects that have been approved with the Aloe Monarch Apartments, and of course the Vista Sunrise 2. I think overall too that the city, and specifically the Planning Commission, and a lot of this is credited to Kathy, has really taken a global view of how we are going to develop within the city, and how we, balance gated communities with non-gated communities, how we're looking at infill in some of our more blighted neighborhoods, and really I think has laid all of what has done over the last 10 years, Grace, has really laid a really good foundation for moving forward.
Thank you. Greg knows that that brevity is a leadership skill. So thank you. We have 3 or 4 more minutes remaining. Are there any other questions? I see Councilmember Kors has one.
Yeah, Greg, since it may come up in our deliberations, just give you an opportunity. You obviously work for the county and the supervisor. Do you see any conflicts or any challenges serving based on that?
I don't on the commission, and that's a great question. I actually see it as a compliment, Jeff, in the fact that even though our planning department within the county, which I'm heavily involved with, is for the unincorporated areas, I think those development goals, the arena is a perfect example that was just groundbreaking, is, that development impacts the entire valley, and also impacts whether it's tourism or housing for workforce development for residents of Palm Springs. I just, as far as any real conflict of interest, if you really want to get down to the legal terminology with all the lawyers on the call here, is, I have no financial gain of anything that would come before the Planning Commission. And so, again, I really feel that my role here and my work with County Housing Authority, as well as the Live to Rise program and work with CVAG, can really be a compliment to the Commission.
Great. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Greg.
Any other questions for Greg? Seeing none, Greg, there are 2 minutes remaining in your interview time slot if you have any other comments that you'd like to make.
Yeah, I mean, you all know me really well. When I wouldn't apply or take on a position if I wasn't going to be fully committed. I'm very passionate about the future of our valley, and especially when it comes to housing and development. I know we already are the fastest growing county in the state. Our region, of course, will be one of the fastest regions as we grow, more so maybe in the East Valley than, say, Palm Springs. But again, that affects the residents of Palm Springs as well. I wouldn't apply for this if I wasn't interested, and really feel that I can be an asset. I don't have a huge, as far as development background goes, or architectural background, but I do think that I can bring the deliberative nature that I have, the inquisitive nature that I have to the Planning Commission that I believe would be beneficial.
Thank you, Greg. You're such an asset to Palm Springs and all that you do. So thank you very much for your service to our county and our district and our city. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it. So,
have a great day.
All right, see you later.
Madam Mayor, Wayne Olson will be joining us in just 1 minute. He may be needing to connect via phone. He's having some technical difficulties.
Thank you.
And Madam Mayor, I'm going to admit Wayne Olson now.
Hi, Wayne. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate your time and your commitment to the city of Palm Springs.
Well, thank you for having me.
We're happy to have you. So we have a 10-minute interview slot. So each council member has a question for you. We're joined by, as you see, the full Palm Springs City Council, as well as Kathy Wehrmuth, the Planning Commission Chair. And we also have our Director of Planning, who I now see is on the line as well. And we are interviewing 7 applicants for 1 appointment to the Planning Commission with a term ending in June 2022. So with that, and I should say that after each council member asks questions, if there is remaining time in that 10 minutes, we will hand it over to you to add anything that you'd like us to know about your application and your interview. So with that, we will start with Mayor Pro Tem Middleton.
Welcome and thank you. My first question for you is, please describe why you're specifically interested in appointment to the Planning Commission.
Sure, Mayor Pro Tem, thank you. And Mayor Halstead, thank you for the invitation to interview with the panel. I have been a resident of Palm Springs since 2018. I live in the Indian Canyon neighborhood and have been active and interested in community and economic development most of my career. And my hope and my desire is to integrate into the community, to understand and to help plan and decide the future really of the community, along with the city council and the citizens of Palm Springs. I've been active in following a variety of developments. I've been visiting the desert since the early 2000s. And I remember when downtown looked a lot different, and the work and accomplishments of the city council and the planning commission of making that change has been inspiring. So I want to join that community and help to make those decisions for the future of the city.
Thank you.
Thanks, Wayne. Welcome. Mine's sort of a two-parter. So it's how you see the role of the planning commission compared to the city council, and how you see the role of a planning commissioner when it comes to working with staff.
You know, it's interesting. I currently work in a city environment, and we have a planning commission that is an autonomous body from the city council in certain documentation and certain applications. I believe that planning commission should work in concert with and in support of the city council. The citizens of Palm Springs have elected the city council to represent them in the community. And so you are the representatives. You are, in fact, the face of the community and the decision point for the community. So I believe the planning commission should provide that, both in terms of technical support and just in support of general in the policies and the directions of the city council, in particular with regard to the city's general plan. With regard to staff is, as we all know, the workforce that provides the workhorse that provides the information that we need to make the right decisions. My interaction with staff would, if appointed to the planning commission, would be one of collegiality. Seeking information, seeking as much data and documentation as I can to make the right decisions on behalf of the city.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Wayne. The question I have for you is, what do you think the most important issue before the Planning Commission currently is?
That's a great question. I'd say now that the Dream Hotel isn't going forward, probably the reuse of that land and how the rest of downtown would redevelop. I think that's probably the main issue. Second to that would be, and this may not necessarily come before the Planning Commission, but how traffic flows throughout the community relative to the increase in density of developments.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Wayne. Thank you. Can you tell me what you think the best projects have been in Palm Springs in the last several years, and also what you think didn't go so well?
Well, there's a half-built hotel, which I think we'll start with that one being the one that's probably the most problematic. And there's many, many reasons, as I understand it, of why that's not moving forward. Obviously, the Rowan is a successful project. It's the vibrancy and the life there. In fact, my partner and I go and we sit at that corner of Starbucks and just amazed at how urban that setting can feel, despite what is relatively a small community in Palm Springs. So I think that whole corner is probably, in terms of what I view as urban scale, urban activity, urban environment, probably one of the more successful ventures that have been accomplished. I also think that I appreciate that the tribal relationship here is in play, but I think the new spa, I think is going to be very interesting in the new, in terms of connecting downtown to that portion of the city.
Thank you so much, Wayne. We're so grateful for you lending your expertise here this morning. We have about 4 or 5 more minutes of the interview. So are there any other questions from council members or from our Planning Commission chair? Seeing none, Wayne, you have a few minutes left over if you would like to add anything.
Yeah, I just am anxious and eager to help support the community and be a part of the decision-making process that helps to build the future of the city. I think I bring the right technical expertise, certainly, and I have a good understanding of how private development works. So I'm eager and hopeful that I'll be able to participate in that process with the city. And I thank everybody for their time. Thank you so much for the opportunity to interview with you all.
Christy, can I ask
so much, Wayne.
Question?
Oh, I see Kathy has a question for you.
Yeah, just with your background in economic development, how do you think you could be helpful to the commission, and where would that, what would that add to the commission?
Sure, Mick. That's an excellent question. I think that oftentimes planning and economic development are seen as loggerheads or ram's heads that are kind of butting in the middle, and I don't know that it necessarily needs to be that way. I think there's often good planning solutions that lead to successful economic development projects. I can give you an example of something that's just happened here in the city of Palm Desert, where they've made a decision to allow certain types of drive-throughs with a certain type of design and aesthetic. But I think it's a success because it also meets the needs of the economic development community in terms of the businesses that have approached the city with their request. Now, I know that's not necessarily the issue in front of Palm Springs, but it's an example, I think, of where understanding the economics of a project may be beneficial in helping cooperatively come to an agreement with an applicant and in a situation where there might be potential, conflict's not the right word, but two views from a planning versus an economic development perspective.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any further? Should I provide any other information? Is there?
I think that's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry,
It looks like your mayor froze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're good, Wayne. Thank you.
Oh, okay. All right.
Sorry.
Thanks so much.
That's all right. Wonderful chatting with you all, and thank you so much for your time and your dedication to public service. I very much appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne.
Yep.
You too. Sorry, I froze there.
Madam Mayor, I'm going to admit Lori into the room now.
Hi, Lori. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's great to see you. Thank you for your interest in continuing to serve the city of Palm Springs and your time here today. As you see, you have the full Palm Springs City Council as well as Kathy Wermuck, our Planning Commission Chair, and we have our Planning Director on the line as well. So just so you know the process, we have 10-minute interviews. We are interviewing 7 candidates to make 1 appointment to Planning Commission with the term ending in June 2022. It's to fill a vacancy. So each council member has a question for you, and then there likely will be time at the end, depending on the length of your answers, to hand it over to you to give you any, an opportunity to add anything to your application or your interview.
Okay.
Thank you. So with that, we will turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem Middleton.
Lori, welcome. Great to see you.
Good morning.
Tell us why you're specifically interested in the Planning Commission.
Planning Commission. I have been a long time, 27-year Palm Springs resident. I love it here. It's my home. I am relatively recently retired and find that I have time to participate in things that I haven't had the time to before. And when I look at my experience and my skill set, what I have to offer, I think the best fit is with the needs for Planning Commission members. I have spent 7 years in redevelopment as a manager and 7 years as director of planning and community development in another Valley city. So I have a great deal of experience in working with everything from CEQA and vehicle miles traveled and 2 rounds. I guess I've been through 2.5 rounds of RENA. Preparing development agreements and public hearing processes, so that I feel that I have the technical foundation to be able to understand what we're talking about and to lend a voice to the conversation. I've had experience updating a general plan, comprehensive overview, and rewrite of the zoning ordinance. And before I came to the Valley, when I was living here but working elsewhere, I was a consultant where I had the opportunity to work with probably 40 or 50 different jurisdictions across the United States, from Alaska to Florida, in construction projects, in development projects. So I think that I've seen a broad range of planning and planning departments that I thought handled things well, and those that I thought were had room for improvement. So I think that I also have a bit of a subjective eye to, an objective eye to lend to the conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Laurie.
Hi.
Mine's sort of a 2-parter, which is the first, how you see the relationship between the city council and the commission, and the second, how commissioners work with staff. And maybe you could just add in, given you've worked with obviously senior staff here and some of the council members, how you think that would impact anything, if at all.
Let me start with staff, because that's probably the most straightforward relationship and probably the less involved relationship. Planning Commission members are a resource to staff. If generally we're hearing cases that they prepare and bring forward. But if they have desire on a more complex project to get less than a quorum of commissioners to give some early feedback and want to meet with developers, at their request, we volunteer to do so. We also serve as a review board for some decisions that are made by the director. Otherwise, there's not a whole lot of involvement or relationship between the two. Clearly, we don't do the planning as commissioners. The staff does that. When it comes to the city council, I would say there's both an explicit and a tacit role that's played. The explicit role is to hear, make recommendations on, or approve and have the city council serve as the appeals board for various types of cases that come forward. Anything from specific projects to long range or long-term planning, general plan updates or amendments, zoning code changes, things like that. unspoken rule, I think, is more that the Planning Commission, when they work well together, can serve to minimize the number of cases that are appealed and minimize the grounds on which cases can be appealed to the City Council, to keep the ability for the City Council to focus on citywide things and not specifically all the time on what's going on in the planning department. It can be done by conducting your public hearings such that you also de-escalate what can be a emotional and contentious and tumultuous process on public hearings or issues that have a great deal of community interest. I think that those, when handled well, I've seen commissions that do handle it well, so that by the time it comes to the City Council, it is a more straightforward and unemotional approach from both sides. And it's easier for the council to gather all the information that they need to make a good decision.
Thank you.
That's in a perfect world.
Yes, which is the world we all want to live in, of course. Thanks.
Hi, Lori, good to see you again. Thank you for your interest. Can you tell me, what do you think the most important issue facing our Planning Commission currently is?
The general plan update. Let me expand on that a little bit because I'm worried about it. I think that the long-term land use planning in Palm Springs is very important. That's one of the things that is being addressed in the update. And I fear that not enough information is being gathered to make the update financially viable. I think that probably there's a missed opportunity by not doing a market conditions analysis. What happens when you don't do that is that you end up with a general plan that gives permission for a lot of different uses that you want. You want true mixed use downtown. You want grocery stores and food deserts. You want things that are good for the community, but you have no idea whether or not they're financially viable and whether or not you will instead get a steady stream of cannabis retailers coming and making application for downtown because there isn't, because that's what the hot market is right now. And the conditions are not right. Somebody wanting to do mixed use might have to come in and get a general plan amendment. They might have to get exceptions, additional height and things like that are controversial and difficult. So this happens when there is a red hot market for current planning, which is what's happening now. Everybody wants to come in and do what's easy to do, what they know how to do, what they've done again and again. And unfortunately, that takes attention and focus away from the long-term land use, and you end up with things that, in retrospect, you might not want to live with for the next 50 or 75 years. So I would say that, to me, the most important thing is general plan update. And that's with all due recognition to affordable housing, because that's right up there too. And there are a number of controversial and difficult issues. I think that the hardest one for people to tease out is the tension between and the need to balance both long-term and current planning.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Can you tell me which projects in the last 10 years you thought were the best for the city and which projects you thought were bad ideas?
Let's start with the bad ideas and get those out of the way first. And if I didn't already tip my hand, I'll say the tower market. I'm pretty disappointed in that. I believe that was a discretionary decision, and that when a developer in hand, they did a soft shoe dance, and we believe them. And I'm afraid that that north end of the community is going to carry a gas station for the next 50 years, where
I think she froze.
what they really need is a grocery store. So I was disappointed. Okay. Otherwise, I think that without naming specific residential developments, we have a host of similar product, what are turning out to be walled communities for $750 to $1.2 million residential, probably part-time residences, maybe full-time if people continue to work remotely. And I'm afraid that blends us in, or we lose our distinction from some of the mid-valley cities by having more walled communities and turning inward rather than having what Palm Springs has had for some time, which is more of a village feel where we integrate with our community and we work with that. So that's on the downside. The upside, I think the downtown redevelopment, what Grit has done is a remarkable success. For a number of reasons. I think it was a success for the designers, for the planning commission, for the city council. I think it's a success for the residents who had to vote to increase the sales tax to pay into this. And I think it is doing and has done exactly what it was intended to do. Would I tweak some of the architecture differently? Sure, but architecture is in my long suit anyway. But I love being there. I look around me and I see people that love being there and walking there. And I think it's made a very unique and distinct and wonderful downtown for us.
Thank you so much, Lori.
Thank you, Lori. I think the city clerk unmuted to show us that is our 10 minutes. So you perfectly made it in 10 minutes. Thank you so much for your time and your expertise. We very much appreciate your commitment to Palm Springs.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. And I look forward to seeing more of all of you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Madam Mayor, that does conclude the interviews for the Planning Commission. If you'd like, we do have the 10 minutes between now and HSPB. You can take that time to debrief with Ms. Wormack. And then when you're done, we could take a short recess.
Thank you. Would council like to debrief now? Do you need a break first?
I'm okay.
I think I'd like to wrap it up for planning if we can.
Okay, great. Kathy, if we can maybe hear from you, I always like to hear from you about what's needed on Planning Commission at this time and sort of your reflections on, the applicants and the need on Planning Commission.
First, I wanted to say that we had a bevy of good candidates. I think that Scott Miller, Greg Rodriguez, Mr. Olson, and Lori Elanian were superb. We need experience on the commission, and we need breadth of understanding of issues. And we don't need, for example, somebody who's just technically good at doing a zoning update. We need the widest possible experience because the issues facing the commission are broad right now. So that's what I would say is I appreciate the first three candidates. I didn't think Mr. Rowley, Mr. Kohler, and Joe Rodriguez brought very much in the way of experience, or I think they'd be at a learning curve if they were on the commission. When I listened to Greg, he brought a lot of housing experience, but I also know that I've worked with Lori when I sat with the City Council Housing Task Force years ago, and she was our economic development director, and her breadth on housing is as broad as anybody I've encountered. So I think both she and Greg would bring housing expertise. As I look, I mean, I don't know if you want to know what my final opinions would be. I would probably, and I'd be sorry that I did. I probably would limit it to a discussion between Scott Miller and Lori for different skills. And I would think that Lori's skills are the broadest and the ones that would help the commission the most. But I think they're both excellent. And I think 4 of the candidates were really excellent.
Thank you so much, Kathy. We really appreciate your insight here. And thank you for saying that. And I meant to say it that, wow, we have, incredible options of candidates. I mean, just experts, kind of the top of the field, a city manager, an economic development director, planning experts, community experts, affordable housing experts. Wow, we are lucky in Palm Springs. So I also would like to support the appointment of Lori. I think she's shown a huge commitment to the city of Palm Springs and just complete expertise about a breadth of issues. And I think she would be a welcome addition to our planning commission. I'm open to hearing everyone's thoughts. I have stars next to almost every single candidate. I think every single one would be an addition and be beneficial. But I think Lori would be a good addition now. Lisa?
Frankly, I thought we had 7 qualified candidates. And frankly, 7 people that would be, I would be proud to work with and serve with. But I come to the same conclusion that the mayor and Kathy came to. Lori was incredibly specific in her answers. She had a reason for what she was arguing about, whether you and I or anyone else that came to the same conclusion. She knew what she was thinking and why. And one of the things she talked about that I did not hear from anyone else was the issues around economic viability. And if there's been anything that we've missed the mark on over the last decade, it's being able to clearly understand whether or not a project was going to be economically viable.
Other comments, Councilmember Woods?
I would agree with the mayor, the chair, the mayor pro tem. We had incredible candidates, and I won't repeat what Mayor pro tem had said, but I do think it comes down to a couple of people who stood out, and that would be Scott Miller and Lori. I think Lori by far understood the kind of what we're going to be dealing with in the city of Palm Springs, especially as it relates to the general plan update, but more so the importance of that general plan update into what our city will be in the future, and her understanding of that and her understanding of the elements that are needed, the missing parts. She included housing, which was a big strength of Greg Rodriguez's, but I just think that she understood the whole thing. When you talked about good and bad projects, she was distinct and precise. She knows how to work with staff. She understands the role of the Planning Commission. And she's been a long-term resident and has a lot of redevelopment experience as well as economic development experience. And I think that is not currently on our Planning Commission, and it would be a great asset. So I would move Lori forward as well, with no disregard to all of the other great candidates that had applied.
Is that a motion, Dennis?
Well, if there's no more comments, I can make, if we need a motion, I can make that as a motion.
Yep.
I'll second that. And then I saw Councilmember Kors seconded first. And then is there any further discussion? Lisa, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. I want to second what I'm hearing from a lot of people, that it came down to Lori and Scott. And I don't know when we're going to have the next opening and who that might be, but I would like us to seriously consider when we get to that next opening whether or not we already have a candidate in place to fill that next slot.
Mayor Pro Tem Middleton, I did want to ask the council that exact question. Would you be interested in designating Scott Miller as a future candidate that I would bring forward to council on the consent calendar if a vacancy were to occur between now and next year or June 30th?
Councilmember Garner.
I'm interested in I don't want it to be just a rote choice in the sense that people come up all the time. And, Lori had not applied previously, and now looks like we're going to be appointing her. But I do, moving forward, think that if we're to get the same list of people, for instance, for the next vacancy, yes, then Scott would be great to point forward. But I would want to take a look at any new people that came along. So if there can be kind of a hybrid there, that would be my preference, just in case we see somebody else that maybe we need that expertise at that time.
Councilmember Kors.
And I was pretty torn between Scott and Greg for the next piece, given just the importance on the housing piece. And so, where we are, if there's more funding for affordable housing, might impact my decision. But if the council, otherwise everyone feels we should do that, I'm okay with it. But I definitely agree with Councilmember Garner on new people, because we would not have had the opportunity to talk to Lori. And so I think maybe, a subcommittee can look at who's applied, and if we have someone, who we all thought really highly of, could narrow it. But I wouldn't want to foreclose, we want people from different districts, we want to make sure we have different lived experiences and diversity. So I wouldn't want to foreclose it, although, Scott would be amazing, of course.
I agree. Anthony, when is the next opening? I don't think we have that in our packet.
Yeah, the next openings would not be until June 2022.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from council is that we might delegate that to the subcommittee to bring back a decision about working with the city clerk about whether to move forward with full interviews by council or a recommendation that would go to a city council meeting.
Understood.
Thank you.
And
Anything
ready for
further?
The roll call vote?
Yes, thank you.
Councilmember Woods.
Yes.
Councilmember Kors.
Yes.
Councilmember Garner.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Middleton.
Aye.
Mayor Holstich.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0 to appoint Lori. And can somebody say her last name for me? Alian. Thank you.
If I could take a minute to just do a plug for all of those applicants that applied. We are in the middle of a general plan update, and particularly our housing element. Your expertise would be greatly appreciated on that. You can call the planning department or go online, but we would really welcome your expertise, even though you weren't selected for the planning commission, to be part of that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Wood. Such a good point, and we appreciate everyone's commitment and involvement. It's such a hard planning commission to get onto because we just have really the world's best applicants. I mean, where else? What other city do you have this level of applicants? It's really incredible. And that is not the only way to serve the city. There are multiple opportunities to get involved. So with that, it is 10:03. City Clerk, do we have time for a short break before we go to the HSPB interviews?
We really don't, but it's up to you.
Council, would you like to go forward, or would you like to take a 5-minute break? And with that, I think we are, Kathy, I saw you unmuted. I think we are done with your.
Right. Thank you so much for letting me participate.
Thank you for participating.
Yeah. Thanks, Kathy. I don't need a break, but if anyone does, we should take it.
Yeah, if we can just have a quick bathroom break, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, let's just take a quick few-minute break. We'll go into recess and we will come back in a few minutes. Thank you.
Recording stopped.
Good morning. We will come back from recess. It is 10:10, and we are beginning our interviews for HSPB.
I'll admit Chris Bell right now.
Hi, Chris. Welcome.
Hi there.
Hi, welcome. Good morning. We're so grateful to have you here this morning with us. And we are grateful for your commitment to the city of Palm Springs and your interest in serving. So just so you know, we have 10-minute interviews this morning. So they'll be short and sweet. Each city council member has a question for you. And then if there is time at the end remaining in the 10 minutes, then we will turn it over to you to give you an opportunity to add anything that you would like us to know in considering your application. We are interviewing 6 candidates today to appoint 1 member to HSPB with the term ending in June 2024. So with that, we will start with Mayor Pro Tem Middleton.
Thank you, Chris, for stepping forward.
Sure. I mean,
tell us why you're specifically interested in the Historic Site Preservation Board and your specific experience in historic preservation.
okay, well, I'm interested in the board because I want to serve the city, and I have a special love for historic and mid-century architecture and buildings in this town. I got really excited and interested when I helped a seller get Class 1 historic designation for their home, which is in Sunmore. It's the Donald Wexler original model home for that neighborhood. And that house is now protected because it's a one of a kind in that neighborhood. It's the only, well, it's not the only, it's one of a handful of Wexlers in a neighborhood that was later completed by the Alexanders with Kreisel and Palmer. So that's really what, you know, that's where I got bit by the bug, so to speak. But I've been a Modernism Week fan since I moved back here 11 years ago.
Thank you.
Yep.
Unmuting. Hey, Chris, welcome. So can you just talk briefly about how you see the role of the board as it relates to the role of city council on matters that come to the board, as well as working with staff?
Well, it's my understanding that, you know, we're a group with a certain amount of education and interest that is to inform city council on decisions regarding historic sites and preservation and buildings. So, you know, I've been to quite a few of the meetings, especially when it's been buildings of direct interest to me. And, you know, we're, I guess, the recommendation board, or we would be. I'm talking like I'm already in there, but you know, recommendations and a little bit more education and interest to bring back to the council. Did I answer that?
Yes. And how about the relationship when working with staff?
Yeah. So, I mean, I understand that Finn and people in planning are involved as well. So we work with them and we would do site visits and those kinds of things to really get an understanding of the value of that particular parcel or architecture for the city as a whole.
Great. Thank you, Chris.
You bet.
Hi, Chris. Dennis Woods here. Can you tell me what you think one of the most important issues facing the commission is currently?
Well, I off the top of my head, I think of the Racquet Club as an example of something. I know that it recently got certain buildings designated Class 2. As I'm a realtor by day, so as someone who sells properties in that Racquet Club neighborhood, the name recognition of that part of town is really incredible. And it all points back to this historic place where a lot of Palm Springs things happened back in the day. And yet that building is sitting there underutilized. I'm not sure exactly what it could be, but it definitely needs to sort of be brought back to life and be a crown a jewel in the crown of Palm Springs's historic buildings. So to me, the HSBC gets involved and, you know, helps protect places like that and bring the council, because you guys have all kinds of different things you have to be aware of, but, you know, bring specific awareness to those particular sites.
Thanks, Chris. How do we balance the economic and sustainable development of our city with our desire for preservation?
That is a great question. So let me really dig deep for that. I think that one of the reasons that I'm personally interested, and I think one of the reasons that there even is a committee, is that we understand I call it architectural tourism. There's a lot of different things we can call it, but it's obviously one of the economic motors that drives Palm Springs. And I personally was involved a few years ago in Sunrise Park and Sunmore, trying to create an actual historic neighborhood. It seems that in this city, we've mostly been successful with getting condo complexes where everything is already designated as historic districts. I think that as time goes on and as we've had this recent resurgence and price increase happening, properties are more at risk for being taken away from their sort of original beauty and value. And protecting that original beauty and value, I think in the long term is really going to be important for the city. And then to go away from residential and use a really awesome commercial example, the Captor Court where the new coffee is, and there's a couple of other businesses, the wine bar, that thing was on a wing and a prayer before it finally got protected. And now that place is hopping all the time. And I think that that's proof that if you save it, people will come to it. And it's good for the city as a whole.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your answers. Are there any other questions? And I should say that we have both our chair of HSBB, Catherine Huff, on the line, as well as our planning director. So are there any final questions for Chris? Seeing none, Chris, you have 2 or 3 minutes to add anything that you would like to your interview.
Okay. I mean, one of the things that's, again, kind of a personal project or potential project and interest for me is, like I said, a few years back, a couple of residents of Sunrise Park, I own a house with my mom there. It was my grandmother's house, so it's been in the family since day one. And a group of us got together thinking that, like, hey, we'll get a bunch of interested residents to create an actual historic neighborhood, but it was a lot harder than we thought, and that's okay. I really understand that individual homeowners don't want to feel like the city's going to dictate what they can and can't do. So I think that the way around that is allowing homeowners. I know that recently, it was decided that any home that's 77 or older, or 78 or older, is automatically considered class 4, and that's so that it can be protected and a permit has to be pulled before anything can be done to it. But I think kind of building from that, letting people whose houses are still intact, going back to what they originally looked like, or, as close to it as possible, get class 2 or class 1 and have the Mills Act benefit. I think that's really going to greatly benefit the city. Years back in Rancho Mirage, a really important house was torn down, and then the city council there went through and just kind of went plat crazy and designated a lot of properties as class 1, lots of houses. And I would like to see more of that in Palm Springs. I think that helps everything. And back to that architectural tourism, when people are driving down the street and they see plaques dotted through neighborhoods, it makes them go, wow, this city really means business with this, really cares about these buildings and wants them to stay for posterity and keep their integrity. So I know that that's not really what the committee does, but it's a point of interest for me, being, like I said, being a realtor by day. And I think it's something that would benefit the whole city economically.
Thank you so much, Chris. Your passion really shines through, and we really appreciate your time today and your answers and your commitment to our community. So thank you for your time here today, and we appreciate it. Have a great day.
Yeah, thank you for the privilege. All right. Take care, all.
Take care.
Thank you. And I'll now admit Stephen Rose. I'm going to call Mr. Rose right now.
Hi, Stephen. Good morning.
Hi.
Good morning. Thank you for being here with us today.
Sure.
Thank you for your interest in serving the city and your commitment to our community. You can see we have the full Palm Springs City Council here, as well as our HSPB Chair, Catherine Huff, and our Planning Director. So each council member has a question for you. We have a 10-minute interview slot. We are interviewing 6 candidates today for 1 appointment to HSPB with a term ending in June 2024. So if we go through all of our questions and we have time at the end, we will go over to you to give you the remaining time to add anything to your interview that you would like us to know. So first, we have a question from Mayor Pro Tem Middleton.
Stephen, thank you. It's great to see you again. Tell us why you're specifically interested in the Historic Site Preservation Board, and also your specific education and knowledge of historic preservation.
Well, I am still interested in the integrity of the very special architecture that we have here in Palm Springs. I cannot think of another location except maybe Sarasota or New Canaan that has such a fabulous collection of extraordinary architecture. And these are works of art. These are historic markers. These are pieces that need to be lovingly restored and supported, so that we continue to have the special nature of our city. I'm committed to that. I've restored 14 historic homes here in Los Angeles, as well as Ojai, Paul Williams, John Lautner, William Cody, to name a few. And I'm just, this is my passion. I had another career that I enjoyed, but this preservation and embrace of these wonderful homes is really my life's passion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and welcome, Stephen.
Thanks.
Can you just talk briefly about, and sort of two-parter, how you see the relationship between the board and the city council, as well as how members of the board should work with staff?
Well, you know, I think that it should be a tandem thing. You know, it's an interesting it's an interesting process. I think that there long has been a sort of a push and pull between renovation and restoration. And I think the sensitive side of it obviously is probably preservation. But as we go forward, I think we need to embrace the concept that, you know, if some of these architects were alive today, you know, what would they do? And what would they do to modernize and make something livable and enjoyable? And I think that the interplay between the city council and the commission and the board has to be really relying on the board and commission to make recommendations to the council. But the one goal in mind is to really maintain the integrity of these special places that make our city proud. Listen, it's hard to get 4 people to agree on a restaurant, much less, you know, what should be done with a home. So I think we need to rely on the expertise and the passion of the board and the commission to recommend things to the council. I think the relationship with the staff is to support them and to enable them and to empower them. I know that I've been involved in one of my in a situation here, and I think the staff does a yeoman's job, and they need to be, you know, supported, and they need to be enabled, and they need to be respected.
Thank you, Stephen. Can you tell me, what do you think the most important, or one of the most important issues facing the commission at this point in time is?
Again, I think it's probably the you know, the push and pull between renovation and restoration. I think that, you know, it's critical to maintain elements of a historic home, but yet allow the freedom to make things livable and modern for the time. I also think that what we need to be careful about is, if we're too harsh, we will have people not want to get designated. So it's a constant flow between making it comfortable and open for people to seek designation, but at the same time not be so restrictive that we have a prophylactic effect on people wanting to help us preserve these beautiful pieces of art.
Thanks, Stephen. Can you talk about how we balance the economic and sustainable development of the city with the desire for preservation?
That's a tough one. I'm glad that's your job. I think that it's an interesting time in Palm Springs. You know, I lived in Los Angeles for over 30 years. And during those times, I always had a home here. And, you know, I've seen this movie maybe 3 times where, you know, things really skyrocket and then they fall apart. Each time we think it's going to be different. And now we have the infrastructure in place that, you know, we have a city that's unaffected by Los Angeles and these other places. But I think that, you know, there's a delicate balance, again, between preservation and looking toward the future and expansion. I hope we finally have arrived with things like, you know, Ron Burkle and some international people that are here. I think that this may be a different time. I don't know, but I'm all for making sure that Palm Springs thrives and supporting its growth and sustenance.
Thank you so much, Stephen. We really appreciate your answers and your expertise and everything you've done for our community. So I see the city clerk popped up on screen. So I think that means we are out of time. Is that right, city clerk?
Yes, yes.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your interview this morning and for joining us. We appreciate it. Have a great day.
All right, take care.
Take care.
I'll now admit Ellen Donaldson into the room.
Hi, Ellen. Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Hi, welcome. It's great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us for interviews. Thank you for your interest in serving on HSPB. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
You are joined here today with the entire Palm Springs City Council. We also have Catherine Huff, who is the chair of HSPB. Our planning director and our city clerk are also on the line. So we have 10-minute interviews this morning. We are interviewing 6 candidates for 1 appointment to HSPB with a term ending in 2024. So each council member will go around and ask you a question. And if there is remaining time at the end, we will give that time to you to add anything you would like to your application or your interview. So with that, we will go to Mayor Pro Tem Middleton, who has your first question.
Thank you for stepping forward. Tell us about your why you're specifically interested in the HSPB and your experience with historic preservation.
I'm interested because I have thought for a little while that I should give some time to civic activities. And I'm interested in historic board preservation because some of my friends have served on it. And I'm interested in preservation and committed to preservation. But I do not have any specific background in it. I have done things like I have worked at the museum on the architecture board when that was extant and loved doing that and loved all the engagement with architecture and with the local architecture and the local historical presence. I think it's very important.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you and welcome, Ellen.
Thank you.
So my question is sort of 2-part, just sort of how you see the role of the board as it works with city council and how you see the role of board members working with our staff.
Well, I don't know much about the staff, and actually that's one of the things that I'm sort of looking forward to is getting more information and more experience with how city government works in Palm Springs. But I do think that it's sort of very important to keep the city council and its staff informed as to sort of the details of historic sites and architectural sites. So as much insight and information as we can provide or as I can provide, I think would be very helpful. And as to staff, I don't know. That's a new thing to me.
Sure, of course. Thank you. I appreciate your answers.
Yeah.
Hi, Ellen. I'm wondering, what do you think one of the most important issues facing the commission today is?
I think one of the most important issues is to really understand and fight for historic preservation across a number of fronts. Not only the rich architectural history of Palm Springs, but also other historic sites and events to make them a part of our community and a part of our understanding of our community.
Thank you, Ellen. Yeah, thank you. What do you think about the balancing the economic and sustainable development of the city with that desire for preservation?
I think it's always a tension. We've seen it happen in Palm Springs time and time again. And I think that sort of an open mind is really important, as well as a notion and a commitment to collaboration. But there's no question that there is a tension. And we need to work to make everybody as satisfied as we can.
Thank you so much, Ellen, for your answers and for sharing your expertise here with us today. Are there any other questions for Ellen before we give her the remaining time? Seeing none, Ellen, I think you have 4 or 5 minutes to add anything to your interview that you would like us to know.
I think the only thing I would like to add is how much for me, moving from the East Coast to Palm Springs in 2008, how much the historic sites and the architectural sites have meant to me. It has so enriched my understanding of the community and my appreciation for the community across the board. And I think it's such an important element of Palm Springs character. And I would love the opportunity to work towards continuing the tradition of preservation and preservation and appreciation.
Thank you, Ellen. Thank you for your passion and commitment to these issues. And we know that it makes Palm Springs unique and like no place else. So thank you for your time here this morning, and have a great day.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'm going to admit Catherine Mahone into the room now.
Anthony, I think Stephen Rose is still in the room.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, Kitty. Welcome. Good morning.
Good morning, Mayor Holstein. How are you?
Good. Great to see you.
You too.
So thank you for joining us. Thank you for your interest in these issues and your commitment to serving the city of Palm Springs. We appreciate your time here with us this morning. So just so you know, we have 10-minute interview slots. So each council member will ask you a question, and then if there is time remaining, depending on the length of your answers, we will give you the remaining time to add anything to your interview or your application that you'd like us to know. Just so you know, we are interviewing 6 candidates today for 1 appointment to HSPB with a term ending in June 2024. And as you can see, we're joined by the full Palm Springs City Council, as well as Catherine Huff, who is the chair of the HSPB. And we also have our planning director and our city clerk on the line. And this is being recorded. So with that, thank you. And we will start with Mayor Pro Tem Middleton's question.
Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you. Please talk about why you're specifically interested in HSPB and your personal experience in historic preservation.
Well, my interest in it comes from involvement with having been a member of the community at Sandcliffe and going through the process as an individual and as a community member in an application for historic designation. And it was a remarkable experience, from knowing nothing about the property to becoming involved with members of the Preservation Foundation, members, and then the HSPB board, and the entire research process and the guidance that we were given. And it was just a really educational and also a very fulfilling experience to do that. And to know that because of all of this, that this property has now been designated as a historic property and will be protected. My interest in preservation goes back to early days of being taught about architecture and design, and learning that when these things move from the private to the public sector and then people become aware of them, there's an appreciation and a protection for them And embedded in that are people's memories and lives. And it makes something which seems static become very much alive.
Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome, Kitty.
Good morning. Thank you.
Morning. So my question is sort of a two-parter, and having been through the process at HSPB, what do you see as the role of the board versus the city council, and then how the board interacts with staff?
So I think that the board acts as sort of a conduit or as ombudsman for the projects for property, helping to identify them and bring them to the awareness of the council, and then acting also with the members of staff who have technical knowledge about the merits and the facilities and just how all of these things function. So I see them all being part of a chain, with ultimately the council having the role and responsibility for approving or rejecting them based on the advice and counsel from both the HSPB and from staff. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Kitty, what do you think is the most important issue, or one of the important issues facing the board today?
I think just the lack of awareness throughout the community about the role of the HSPB and the significant role that they have played in the city to promote the city, to protect the properties, and actually how the process works. My experience with it was we learned peeling back layers of the onion a piece at a time. And I think if there were a way to make that process better known to members of the community, I think more people might become involved and aware and participate.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you feel about the balancing of the economic and sustainable development of this city, as well as the desire for preservation?
I understand. Yeah, it's difficult. I understand that's a very delicate balance, and the preservation part of it, I think, adds the tourism, the dollars that come in for the preservation foundation symposiums, obviously Modernism Week. I mean, those are all dollars that are driven. I understand that it's difficult to fund a lot of projects because we have other issues in the city in terms of building and sustainability and new projects and growth for the city. But I don't think the two things need to be separated. I think that one supports the other, that we can have growth and sustainability at the same time as preserving projects.
Thank you so much for your answers and your passion and expertise on this issue and everything that you've done for our community. Are there any final questions for Kitty before we turn it over to her to add any final comments? I don't see any. So Kitty, take it away. I see that you have 5 to 6 minutes or so if you'd like to take them.
Well, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to talk to you and for the review of my application. As I said, it has been, my experience has been, it's been a wonderful process and be getting to know and involved with members of the community. My husband and I moved here 10 years ago, and shortly after that, we became involved, and it's become a part of our lives to be involved in this. And share it with other people. And my experience with the HSPB is that it's been a terrific group of people to work with when we had the experience of applying, the guidance that they gave us, and then going forward, there were projects that came up afterward where members of the HSPB were able to give us some guidance about how to navigate additional projects. It was something very specific. We needed to add an air conditioner unit to a building, and members of the HSPB and members of staff helped walk us through that whole process so that we could help to maintain the building and still do something which was very technical and necessary. So it's that kind of thing that I think is really interesting. I just feel that the support for HSPB projects, the Preservation Foundation, all of the various, the Historic Society in Palm Springs really enliven the city. And I appreciate the council's involvement and willingness to support them.
Thank you so much, Kitty.
You're welcome.
Appreciate your time today. Have a great day.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Madam Mayor, I'm going to admit Tom Manzi into the room now. Hello, Mr. Manzi, are you there?
He's still connecting to audio. Hi, Tom. Welcome. You are muted, but welcome. Thank you so much for your time this morning. I want to confirm that you can hear us. You can hear us, great. And then at the bottom left hand of your screen, you should see a mute button where you can mute and unmute yourself.
There I am. Wow, I have a voice.
You are. Perfect. Welcome. Thank you so much for your time today and your interest in serving the city of Palm Springs. We appreciate your commitment to our community. Just so you know what is happening here today, we have 10-minute interview slots. So we're joined here by the full Palm Springs City Council, as well as Catherine Huff, who is the chair of HSPB. We also have the planning director and our city clerk on the line. So you will have 10 minutes. Each council member will go around and ask you a question. And then if there is remaining time, we will hand it over to you to add anything at the end that you would like us to know and consider your application. So you know that we are interviewing 6 candidates today for 1 appointment to HSPB with a term ending in June 2024. So with that, we will turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem Middleton.
Thank you for stepping forward and good morning. Can you tell us about why you are specifically interested in the HSPB and your personal experience with historic preservation?
Well, it's funny. I was once hired to teach American history at a community college. I was in Kentucky, and they didn't have many PhDs, and I had a master's, so they actually selected me. But I didn't have a chance to do it because I was working for the federal government, and I was transferred 2 weeks before class started. But I've always been a history buff, and I moved to Palm Springs from the East Coast in April 2019. Instantly fell in love with Palm Springs. I wanted to learn everything about it. And so when I saw this, I thought, what an opportunity for me to really dive in and sort of get to know more about my community and, and contribute, obviously.
Thank you.
I know we don't have much time, so I'm going to keep my answer short.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. So welcome, Tom.
Well, thank you.
My question is sort of 2 parts. How do you see the role of the board as compared to the city council on matters that will come through the board? And how do you see the role of the board in working with city staff?
Well, from what I understand, the board doesn't really have any inherent authority, right? They can just make recommendations to the council. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So matters would come to council usually.
Oh, sure. So I know. So I know the council has plenty of things to do. I mean, there's so much going on right now, so they don't have the time to dive into sort of the historical intricacies associated with the city. So it's good to have some dedicated people who can focus on those issues and sort of make presentations and recommendations to the council to decide on.
Great.
And city staff, I don't. Per my ignorant understanding, they don't have the authority to direct city staff to do anything. But again, just I would imagine that the 7 of us would sort of work amongst ourselves to develop our recommendations and then sort of hand them over to the to the council and any staff who obviously has any responsibilities in that area.
Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Good morning, Tom. Can you tell me what do you think is one of the most important or an important issue facing the commission today?
So you mean specifically pertaining to historical preservation?
That's correct.
Yeah. Well, it's funny when I got here, I noticed the historical significance that most associate with Palm Springs would be obviously the architecture and also, again, forgive my ignorance, but Hollywood's golden age, essentially. The Rat Pack and that sort of, and that age of the old studio system. So the mid-century modern period of architecture obviously is all about Palm Springs, but also I think what draws a lot of tourists and residents to Palm Springs is the whole Hollywood angle. I know during the studio system, I think studios require their actors and actresses to live within 100 miles of Hollywood. I think we're right at that point, which I think made it an attractive place for a lot of actors to live. But those are the two things that come to my mind anyway when I think of historic preservation in Palm Springs. And then there's also Agua Caliente, but they're sovereign, so I think they would probably focus more on their own history than we would.
Thank you. Tell me, what do you think in terms of balancing the economic and sustainable development of this city with the desire for preservation?
Well, I mean, I don't necessarily see them as conflicting with each other because ultimately what makes a city an attractive place to live is it's not like new McDonald's and, 7-Elevens. It's going to be quality of life. The history is what draws people and what ultimately drives up property values, right? If we became just another sort of cookie cutter well, no, we're not suburban, but just a cookie cutter town where everything looks the same and, brand new sparkling high rise apartment towers, we'd lose our cachet and lose what makes us special. So I could be wrong, but I would hope that local, for example, developers and business owners grasp that and don't want to turn us into Riverside, for example.
Thank you so much for your answers. We very much appreciate your passion and expertise on this issue. So it looks like you have a few minutes left. So are there any final questions for Tom from council members or for the HSBB chair?
Oh, no, I'm just, I should admit, I'm just applying for the money. That's a bad joke. Terrible joke. But also, I should throw in too that it's not, a person should never brag about his lack of a life, but I don't have a family here. So it's just me. So I have plenty of time and sort of energy to devote to these kind of things too. So it wouldn't be just sort of like one of my many items in my portfolio. I would really be passionate about it. And also it would give me sort of the motivation, sort of the little kick in the butt to really let me study more and dive more deeply into local history, which intrigues me.
Great. Thank you so much. And any final comments before we adjourn your interview?
No, thanks for the opportunity. And anyway, love this town. And how can anyone not? I find people either love it or hate it. And I'm clearly of the former.
Thank you. We love our town too. So we all share that for the city of Palm Springs. So thank you so much for your interview and your time today. We appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thanks. You too. Take care. Bye.
Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Madam Mayor, that does conclude the interviews. I do want to note that Travis Armstrong did submit a written request that you consider his previous interview. And note that Dick Burkett did submit public comment with a recommendation. And that's all that I have.
Thank you so much. Catherine, I'd like to go to you first, if you would like. We often like to hear from the chair of the board or commission to let us know what you're looking for, what skills might be helpful to add to HSBB at this time, and any other information we should know. At first, I see Anthony.
Yeah, I did want to answer your question about Steve Keelan. So in May, we did send notice to everyone with an application older than 2019. His was 2017, asking them to resubmit, and he did not.
Okay, so we just interviewed applicants. When was that we last interviewed him and others?
Don't recall.
It was only a few months ago, right? Every day feels like a year, but I think it was just a few months ago. Okay, so we require people to affirmatively resubmit.
Well, I heard that the council was getting frustrated with very, very old applications. And so that's why we reached out to everyone that had an application older than 19 and asked them to reapply, including incumbents.
Thank you. And you asked them to reapply by mail or email?
No, we had an online form for them to be able to fill out.
Mm-hmm. And you send them notice?
Mm-hmm.
How do you send them notice?
Via email.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much for detailing that for the public and the applicants who are watching along. So Catherine, do you have input here about what you think is needed for HSPB at this time and what you might be recommending?
Sure. I did have a question about Travis. I didn't understand what's the situation with his application.
Certainly. So Mr. Armstrong had previously applied and interviewed for the HSPB. And at this particular moment, he was not able to participate in the interviews. And so since he had previously interviewed, he wanted the council to consider his previous statements.
Okay. All right. So he's still in the run then for review. Okay. I hadn't been at that interview, but I did take a look at his qualifications and he seemed highly qualified. And in regard to looking for the best person to fill this position, I think it's important to have a good balance of a diverse board that brings different expertise and different qualities to the board and informed, of course. Would you like me to give you my favorites or who you think? I mean, I don't know how detailed you from me, and so I think it's important to have people that have some experience, not only experience in preservation, conservation, restoration, but also experience in this community to know what is relevant and meaningful to our citizens and people in our community. So I think it's important to be well-informed and knowledgeable about our city. So saying that, I tend to like people that have lived here a little longer. I mean, like Chris Bale seems very, very informed. Kathy Mahon, she's had that experience too with Sandcliff, and of course, Steve Rose is very experienced. I mean, that's his profession, really, is restoration and preservation. And Steve is an expert. I'm wondering if his personal experience might affect his judgment. So that's just one question. I think those are kind of my highlights, if that is sufficient for for a preliminary kind of review, gut feelings. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about what I think.
Thank you. Could you tell us a little bit about the makeup, your sense of the makeup of the commission and what you might be looking for to fill this vacancy?
So when I said I believe there needs to be some diversity of expertise, I think bringing art historians together with a realtor, with actual experience of someone who has worked in the field or has been involved and with actual behind the scenes kind of working. But then again, education is very important to educate the members of our community. And I think someone that really understands the procedures is important to have on the committee to be able to communicate the process and the criteria for evaluating historic properties. So I think a very balanced and diverse board is needed across the line. And right now, currently, I'm very pleased with the makeup of the board with the 2 new members that were just added last month. And so I feel really great that we have a strong board, and filling this one last position is very important.
Thank you so much for your leadership of the board. I saw Jeff had his hand raised.
Great, thank you. And once again, we have a wealth of really great people who would all bring something to the board. And we're just so lucky in Palm Springs, and I wish we had more positions. So for me, the 2 people we interviewed last time, Stephen Rose and Travis Armstrong, who both ranked at, in the top of my 3 last time, I think they both bring real great skills. I think that Stephen sort of stands out to me, given staff's desire for expertise in this area, having done 14 historic renovations in 3 cities, including Palm Springs, and it being his, profession and his knowledge base. And I really liked how he discussed, what would the architect want today, right? That we need things to be livable, as well as discussing these are art pieces, right? And so he stood out to me. I think Travis last time, and it would have been great if he was here, but I really, liked, one, he's, served the city for so long, and it's that balance between someone he's already been on 3 boards and commissions, and bringing in new people, but he brings, expertise in tribal issues, which I think would be a great asset. And I think Chris and Kitty both have, been through the process in some way in Palm Springs, in addition to Stephen, and would bring assets as well. So those were sort of where I went. So very similar to you, Catherine, and sort of who stood out to me. And for me, it was really a close call between Stephen and Travis for the reasons sort of I laid out.
Thank you, Lisa.
Grace
and Dennis.
Grace had her hand up first.
Sorry, I might have been looking at the current makeup of the board on a different screen, and Grace's face was covered. So I apologize, Grace.
That's all right.
Go ahead, Grace, and then Lisa, and then Dennis.
Okay. I really like the expertise that Travis has to offer as well, and just tribal issues and being able to have that viewpoint, which we just really haven't had ever on our board, and he's got extensive experience. I also liked what Kitty had to say in terms of just how she approached issues, and that she does have that experience, like we said, actually doing these projects. But I also just appreciated her way of looking at things. I felt like that was it was more nuanced, and I think that's really valuable.
So always we get an incredible number of really strong candidates, but the 3 that stood out to me were Stephen, Chris, and Kitty. I thought each one of them brought the experience that we need. We have some really tough issues that come before the HSPB. And they're really hard questions of preservation that have to be resolved. And no one that we interviewed had more experience at preservation issues than Stephen Rose, and what he's done personally is just remarkable. So that's who gets my top vote. But the other 2 were remarkable as well.
Dennis?
Yeah, certainly. Although Travis has great experience in tribal, and I think that's an asset that would be nice. I really do think that Chris and Stephen ranked right up there, and I agree that Stephen Rose and his experience and staff in both and the chair are looking for somebody with experience, direct experience in restoration. But I also like the fact that Stephen Rose was able to talk about it as art. And he was able to talk about kind of the balance between preservation, the push and pull between preservation and economic development. I guess I'm leaning towards Stephen Rose.
Thank you. And for Grace and Dennis, do you have a third? I know we're not voting, but I am keeping tally here. So do you have a third person in mind on your list as we allocate these? No.
No.
Okay. And then Lisa and Jeff, did you sort of give yours in order? I know you said 3 names each.
Stephen 1, Chris 2, Kitty 3.
Thank you.
I would say Stephen, Travis, and I'm tied for third.
Okay. I'm trying to tally people's votes. And then Flynn, I know you're on the line. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to give input about what we might be thinking through or looking for in terms of candidates here. You've heard most of council's preferences based on the interviews and application.
Yes, I have. One of the things that we've been missing since Mr. Lavoie unfortunately had to depart from the board was someone with architectural experience. In lieu of that, someone who has preservation experience or restoration experience, as Mr. Rose does, is certainly something that I think would be helpful for the Historic Site Preservation Board. I'd like to also call out the fact that on Mr. Armstrong's resume, he has training and experience in archaeology. And while that doesn't come up very often, it's not, a background that we've had on the board before. So in addition to his tribal experience, his studies in archaeology and practice in archaeology, I think would be something that would be very interesting and helpful. Just those are 2 things that stood out to me, and again, defer to the City Council in the review of all these wonderful qualified applicants.
Thank you. So looking at our tally, I know I haven't weighed in yet. Give me a minute to do that if we can. If other people have comments at this time before we do that. And I know that's not how we're deciding, but just as a jumping off point. So we have a vote for Stephen and Travis, Travis and Kitty, Stephen and Chris, Chris and Stephen, and then Flynn weighed in, Stephen and Travis. And I'm sorry, Catherine, I didn't include yours because I think we were just talking broadly there. So do you have a preference of 2?
Of 2 people?
Yeah.
I have 3. I haven't met Travis Armstrong in person, so I've just read his qualifications, and I think bringing the anthropological balance is very good. And Steve, of course, Stephen Rose, he's a professional, and we agree that. And then I liked Kitty May Hans, her personal approach and passion that she has. Anyway, those are it's tough. You guys have a tough decision because you have some great. Those 3 rise to the top for me.
Thank you. And I think mine were it's hard. We're going to try to give 4 here, but we really need 2. I really was blown away and liked Chris, Stephen, Kitty, and Travis when we interviewed him before. So I think what it looks like is that Stephen and Travis are the top 2 vote getters if we were to do ranked choice voting. So, you know, and then Chris and Kitty are on that list with a few votes each as well. So it would be 2 for Chris, 4 for Stephen, 1 or 2 for Kitty, and then 3 or 4 for Travis, depending on Catherine's 2 votes. So does someone have a recommendation or further discussion about where you'd like to go from there? Or would you like to do ranked choice voting in terms of the candidate with the most votes?
We could. I mean, from that, it sounded like, from what I heard, sort of maybe Stephen had more first places and Travis was the next one. But if people, you know, want to discuss that further, but that was sort of how I counted. But you have a tally sheet. But I think Stephen was on at least 3 as first choices. And then Travis was 1 first choice and you had 4 equal, I think, Christy. And he was as close to first, but second choice, just given the expertise issue.
Catherine, if you give me 2 names, I can add it to the tally.
Travis and Stephen.
I think that's where we all are.
Yeah, I think so. It's clearly between those 2 in terms of votes, and it's like 4, 5. I think I'm counting right. Stephen has 5 votes. Travis has 4, and Jeff is right that Stephen is at the top of most people's lists if they gave it in ranked order.
So I'll make a motion just to move forward. That we appoint Stephen, but that we do the same thing as we discussed before the Planning Commission, that if we don't have new people, you know, a committee can review that, given I think Travis, you know, ranks so highly for folks. And we've interviewed him, that we, you know, have a committee make a recommendation. And if they agree and there aren't new people who they think are worth interviewing, we move forward as the city clerk discussed with the Planning Commission.
So there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and then city clerk, can you tell us the future of appointments for this board?
In 1 second.
I'm looking on the website, but I'm not sure if that's completely current.
All right, for HSPB, the next we have Daniel Kaiser, Jade Nelson, and Eric Rosenau with expiring terms in 2022, with Daniel being termed out.
Okay, so there will be 1 appointment in June 2022.
Correct, at least. And then, of course, there's always the possibility we'll have a vacancy.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Nope. So can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Kors.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Middleton. I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem Middleton?
Say yes, is that right, Lisa?
Councilmember Garner.
Yes.
Mayor Holstedge.
Yes.
Councilmember Woods.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you so much to all the applicants. Again, we are just blown away by the skill and passion we have in terms of people who want to serve on this board. And we appreciate all the applicants and hope that they will stick with us as we continue to interview people and appoint for this board. So thank you to our chair for leading HSPB and for all of your work here today.
Right.
Thank you. So with that, City Clerk, is there anything else before we adjourn?
No other business, ma'am.
Thank you. So we will adjourn at 11:15. Thank you all.
Thank you.